A demon king frog unexpectedly emerges with the intent to wreak havoc upon the world. However, our 6-year-old boy, Wang Ling, observes the chaos as people flee in terror and responds in the most instinctive manner. He heads to the store to purchase some snacks. Amidst the battle with cultivators, the frog spots the young boy and contemplates seizing the opportunity for a 2-for-1 snack deal. Fortunately, Wei, a skilled cultivator, arrives just in time to rescue the little boy and defeats the frog on his own. Now, 10 years have passed, and the young boy is now preparing to enroll in a cultivation and spiritual academy affiliated with the 60th faction. Upon his arrival, he encounters Sun Rong, a girl possessing a remarkable level of spiritual force, who intervenes on his behalf against some bullies by striking them with a golden beam. Subsequently, the students are introduced to an entrance examination that will determine their class assignments for the academic year. They're ranked by defeating a stationary incarnation of the demon frog from 10 years ago, with their performance dictating whether they will be placed in the ordinary class or the elite class. When Wang Ling is summoned to compete, he becomes the target of ridicule due to his perceived lack of cultivation strength. He strolls into the hall with an air of indifference, and as he approaches, the frog begins to sweat and quiver. It remembers him as the kid from 10 years ago. At that time, Wang Ling was really mad after he dropped his snack, and in a fit of rage, he kicked the frog with his insane strength, taking it down. Back in the testing hall, he stood in front of the frog, ready to throw a punch while holding back his power to fit in with the regular class. But just as he was about to strike, his energy caused the whole system to crash, leaving everyone scratching their heads. When the screen flickered back on, the frog was lying on its back, and Wang Ling was still standing there, leaving everyone stunned and wondering how this so-called weakling managed to take down the Demon King. In the end, he got placed in class elite with Jiao Hao, Chen Chao, and Sun Rong. The first thing they learn is how to summon familiars. The teacher lays down the theory and challenges them to summon a spiritual beast. Sun Rong totally impresses her classmates with her unique summon, a little skeletal puppy. Then the teacher turns to Wang Ling, who looks pretty bored, and asks him to give it a shot too. Reluctantly, he summons that frog from earlier. The moment the students see it again, they freak out and bolt from the classroom, terrified of the demon. The teacher quickly casts a spell to change its look, turning it into a dog, which calms everyone down. The students come back, now curious and impressed by the creature. They decide to name the dog Froggy, and as Wang Ling leaves the classroom and heads home, thinking about his past. From the moment he was born, he was a powerhouse, leveling up his cultivation every 2 years. He was so in tune with his parents that he could sense their true feelings, even when they kept quiet. This insight helped him save their marriage by accidentally wetting himself and interrupting their pointless fight. As he got older, his strength grew to the point where his parents had to put a power-restraining seal on him to prevent him from going berserk and destroying the world. But even that wasn't enough. He had to take a golden pill daily just to keep his immense power in check. So, he decided to keep a low profile until his dad could finish the second seal. He went to school and kept to himself, trying to avoid any trouble that might trigger the seal and unleash his power. Unfortunately, this second seal turned out to be a flop, as it also dulled his ability to feel any emotions. One day at school, Wang Ling notices Sun Rong campaigning for class president. She thinks the best way to win votes is by giving out free stuff, so she buys a ton of goodies and hands them out to her classmates. Wang Ling isn't really into it, but he trades 5 of his votes for some snacks and gives her a golden pill as a thank you gift. When the professor enters, he sees some odd signs on the students' heads and decides to teach them about seduction. Wang Ling realizes that Sun Rong has been using this trick on everyone, as he can see the signs too, but he quickly figures out that it only works if no one gives her anything in return, which is a problem since he gave her the pill. When Sun Rong looks his way, he gestures a thanks for the snacks, but she misinterprets it as eat the golden pill. She eagerly takes it, thinking it'll give her a power boost, but instead, she loses her strength, breaking her hold over the class. The professor then asks her to show off her spell, and as she walks to the front, she trips over a can. Wang Ling catches her but lets her fall when the professor wants him to demonstrate the trick. He repeats the phrase Sun Rong used in the shop, and a shockwave of his force field sweeps through the school, unknowingly putting Sun Rong under his spell. The next day, Sun Rong asks Wang Ling out on a date, and while he doesn't exactly say yes, she thinks he might be into it. While at school, he spots some assassins on the roof aiming for Sun Rong, so he unleashes a shockwave that knocks one of them back, ruining their shot. At home, his parents push him to go out with Sun Rong, who's been waiting for him since morning. He finally agrees to the date, which takes place at a theme park just for the two of them. However, the assassins are still on their trail and start shooting at Sun Rong. Wang Ling catches a bullet in his mouth and retaliates with a shockwave, sending one of the attackers flying. He uses his trick of forgetting to make Sun Rong and the theme park worker less suspicious of him. They continue to enjoy the park while Wang Ling keeps swatting away the assassins. Finally, they ride the Ferris wheel, and the assassins follow them in the next car. The assassins end up in their car and hold them at gunpoint. Sun Rong stands up to them and protects Wang Ling by shielding him with her body. Wang Ling gets angry and sends the two assassins flying into the air with his spiritual force and summons mercy of the gods to finish the assassins up. He's stuck resting at home for a few days to keep Sun safe during their date. His friends and Sun Rong come over to check on him. They share that their teacher asked them to bring him a bracelet for the annual spiritual power exam. This exam is all about measuring their powers with the bracelet to find the top students in the country who will compete in a sword competition against other schools. Sun Rong ranks as the second strongest after creating a force sphere, while Chen Chao and Jiao Hao also score high enough to join in. When it's Wang Ling's turn, he tries to hold back his power to just 1%, but he still ends up creating a force sphere so huge that it disrupts everything around him and causes a massive flash. He launches the sphere into space to avoid detection. The system detects him but can't give him a score, so they mark him as null and rank him as the strongest student. All his friends are picked for the sword competition, but they still need one more teammate. The teacher suggests Froggy, who's actually a dog that used to be a frog, and he's easily ranked as the second strongest in the country. The teacher informs the group that they'll be training for 3 days leading up to the competition. Everyone needs to bring their own sword, and curiosity sparks as they ask Wang if he has won. He simply nods and heads down to his basement. There, he opens a box to reveal that his sword is actually a little boy. After the 3 days of training, they gather to head to Faction 59's gym, but Wang is only focused on finding ways to dodge the competition and stay out of the spotlight. Upon arriving at the gym, they see the other faction already waiting for them. The director of Faction 59 pulls out her impressive testing method to assess Wang Ling's cultivation level. Seizing the moment, he pretends to be injured to avoid competing, dramatically collapsing to the ground as if he's unwell, but his seal starts to crack. Suddenly, a huge burst of fire erupts from him, shooting into space and causing him some trouble. Still, he keeps up the act of being hurt, hoping to be excused from the competition and return home to fix his seal. Medics carry him away on a stretcher to the medical room. He suddenly is set in a purple fire. Faction 59's director bandages him up immediately and stops him from burning, but he manages to escape from the medical room, leaving everyone puzzled about his disappearance. He gives his dad a ring to ask him to bring the new seal he's been working on since the old one is falling apart. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew heads to the gym while Wang Ling roams around the building, totally lost in search of an exit. Eventually, he stumbles into the gym and witnesses Chen Chao's arm getting wrecked by Bufong, a strong student from the 59 faction, who also happened to set him on fire earlier. Wang Ling rushes in and manages to fix Chen Chao's arm, then strides over to Bufong, who charges at him with a punch. Wang Ling takes the hit, gets back up, and brushes off the weakling as he walks past like it's no big deal. Then, the competition kicks off, and everyone gets teleported into the 5-element altars where they have to battle to claim the altars by placing their swords on them to rack up points over time. They get placed in all the different altars and Faction 59 is on a mission to take them down and seize control of all the altars. Just a few minutes later, it's announced that Faction 60 has successfully captured one. Wang Ling was watching Go Hao battle a member of Faction 59 when Go Hao suddenly started channeling his spiritual energy towards Wang Ling. He urged Wang Ling to get up and join the fight, but Wang Ling remained still. As frustration built up, his heart raced, causing his seal to weaken further and letting dark energy seep out. Froggy noticed this and rushed over to absorb the escaping dark energy, which allowed Wang Ling to tap into his power. They fused into a single beast to harness Wang Ling's spiritual energy. The Faction 59 member aimed his sword at Wang Ling, who casually touched the blade, causing it to shatter. Wang Ling then approached him and lightly pushed him away, sending the guy flying with a loud crash. After that, he decided to move on and capture the altar. Following the first capture, he pressed on and took 2 more altars, putting Faction 60 in the lead. But soon enough, Faction 59 manages to reclaim the altars by trailing Faction 60 and seizing them for themselves. Wang Ling decides to pick up the pace to grab all the altars more quickly. However, he's interrupted by Sun Rong, who suggests they come up with a new strategy to secure most of the altars and clinch the victory. Wang Ling takes charge of the water altar while Chen Chao defends the metal altar, battling against a fake Bufong. Meanwhile, Sun Rong and Go Hao take on a member of Faction 59. Bufong overpowers Chen Chao and snatches the wood altar, but he regains it when his sword spirit awakens to assist him. Furious at Chen Chao for his defeat, Bufong reveals her true identity as the leader of the assassins who has been targeting Sun Rong. Wang Ling leaves and captures another altar, but upon reaching the new altar, Wang Ling starts to get overwhelmed by all of the emotions he wasn't able to feel since making his friends. The seal threatens to break completely. He stops and doesn't lower his sword to the altar. Sun Rong comes and tells him that he did it, calming him down, and they both place the sword on the altar. But as soon as they finish doing so, the Shadow faction leader comes and hits Sun Rong on the back, killing her at once. Her spirit comes out of her body and hugs him until he tearfully watches her disappear in his arms. At that instant, Wang Ling starts to burst inside. His heartbeat starts to catch up with the pace of the tears going down his face, remembering every time she smiled, their time in the theme park, her warm hug. Everything they've been through makes him burst into rage, destroying his seal and chains restraining his heart. Froggy tries to stop time from flowing, but it can't stop Wang Ling from going berserk on the woman. He violently beats her, brutally punching her, sending her flying and kicking her to the moon and back. He pulverizes her completely. While thinking that he just wanted to be with Sun Rong, he wanted a peaceful life, one where she exists. Just as he's about to deliver the final strike, he recalls Sun Rong's last words and hesitates. He attempts to bring her back, but Froggy tells him it's hopeless. He can't revive a lost soul. Overwhelmed with emotion, he breaks down again, wishing he could trade all his spiritual energy for her life. She was the one who showed him the beauty in the world. Before her, he felt so empty, ridiculed by others, and left in solitude. His hands tremble as he grips her hand, making a choice. He decides to reset the entire world. He keeps trying to revive her, but nothing works. He makes several attempts, yet it's futile. Her life force has been completely extinguished, as his sword confirms. He asks Froggy what he can do, and Froggy suggests creating a new timeline, but warns it'll take a ton of energy. Wang raises his hand and starts forming a massive energy ball, way bigger than Earth, and asks if that's sufficient. Froggy questions if he's lost his mind trying to go against nature's rules and risk getting struck by lightning. But Wang Ling's eyes light up with determination as he responds, how could that be worse than living without her? In this alternate world, Wang Ling joins the school and goes through the same motions as before. But this time, Sun Rong is completely absent. She's not in his class, there are no dates, nothing at all. Even though he doesn't remember what he's missing, he feels a profound emptiness and ends up in tears. In a world on the brink of destruction, Sun Rong is revived by the underground rulers after they discover she's a descendant of Sun Wukong. When she wakes up, she turns to the sword for answers, and he fills her in on everything. Realizing Wang Ling is doing this for her, she asks to bring him back. The sword tells her that all she needs to do is destroy the new world to set things right. She plunges the sword into his chest, obliterating the new world and pulling him out of it. They clasp hands and travel back to the past, where Chen Chao is battling the fake Bufong. Wang Ling uses his powers to slam her into the ground, ending her life. They seize all 5 altars and claim victory. Sun Rong rushes in, only to find she has no memory of anything, just how time reversal works. It never happened. Then, Wang Ling's father arrives, handing him a seal to manage his powers and emotions. Even if Wang Ling never ends up with Sun Rong, his only wish is for world peace.